Waheguru Ji Ka Khalsa, Waheguru Ji Ki Fateh. Welcome to the segment of Coach Gurbani's a-sabad-a-day. Our recitation, the 31st stanza from Gaudi Kabir Ji. The recitation. Gaudi Kabir Ji, Dei Muhar Lagam Pahiravau, a-sabad-a-day gagan dauravau, अपने विचार सवारी कीजै, सहज के पावड़े पग धर लीजै रहाओ। चल रे बैकुंठ तुझे ले तारो, हे चल ते प्रेम के चाबुक मारो। कहत कबीर भले असवारा, वेद कतीब ते रहे निरारा। कहत कबीर भले असवारा, वेद कतीब ते रहे निरारा. If you recall, in the previous passage, Kabir Ji talked about Ved ki putri, Smriti. He was talking about the systems of religion that evolved around written texts, systems of human origin that coded for us how we should be living in terms of what we should be doing and what we shouldn't be doing, what ritual we should be performing, and so on. And Kabir is essentially criticizing that mode of living. In this passage, he uses the metaphor of a horse for human consciousness. Now, that is something that is often invoked in Gurbani, and indeed, we have a composition called Gaudiya, titled The Horse. So it is the image of a rational mind, Vivek Buddh, trying to bridle the passionate surge of egoic passions, haume. And the two are always working to conspire our experience. So here he addresses the mind as a horse, and he's telling us how to reach that state of superconsciousness, a different consciousness, the self, the goal of Gurmat. And he says, Dei Muhar Lagam Pahiravau. Muhar is really the crown and nose bit of a horse. It's the harness. And Lagam, the reins with which you give it direction. So Kabir says, saddle the mind horse with the harness of self-control and the reins of Gur wisdom, because we need direction from Gur wisdom, and we need to exercise discipline to begin with. Ethical, moral discipline is the bedrock of this system. And the reins of the horse is Gur wisdom. He says, De Muhar Lagam Pahiravau, I would rein the mind in. Sagal Tajeen Gagan Dauravau. Sagal Tajeen. This is a reference to the self, the one that pervades everything. Gagan Dauravau. If you remember, Kabir Ji talks about Gagan, a generic term for the sky, but used to indicate the self. And then he goes on to elaborate in the Rahau. He says, Apne bichari aswari kijai. Aswari, mount. That's the first thing that a good rider does, is mount the mare. And he's saying, mount the mare of your thoughts. Apne bichar aswari. And in the stirrup of sehaj. So your stirrup, where you place your feet, is sehaj, meaning natural equipoise. What it means by sehaj is that good wisdom should become a natural habit, a second nature. Your feet have to be firmly planted in that nature. अपने विचार असवारी कीजै सहज के पावड़े पावड़े the stirrups. पग धर लीजै, place your feet. In other words, be grounded in Guru wisdom. And then he says, Chal re, come, move with me. Let me take you to Vaikunt, which is another term generically used for heaven, but in Gurmat it is used to indicate transcendence. So he says, come on, let me take you to that space. And if you hesitate, if you hesitate, I will goad you with the whip of love, like you have to goad the elephant. Conclusion. A very small passage, sweet and profoundly deep. Kahat Kabir, says Kabir, Pale Aswara, my dear rider, Ved Katebte Rahe Nirara, remain aloof from scriptural systems. What essentially is being said is, be aware of organized religion, whether it is Hindu or Muslim, because he's referring to both the books, Ved, Hindu, Kateb, the Semitic books. In other words, don't get trapped in that, in organized religion, if you will. On that note, Waheguru Ji Ka Khalsa, Waheguru Ji Ki Fateh.